Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. I bring to you my geranium that wintered over very successfully. I can't believe how big this is. It was just a little guy, and I thought, I'll be lucky if it doesn't completely dry out. And it's tripled in size, but the leaves are kind of a little bit soft. Yeah, so anyways, I've heard that the thing to do is to get a fan and just slowly have the plants be fanned by the indoor wind so that they're not getting chilled, but that their stems strengthen. So that's what this baby and I are going to do today. We're going to strengthen our stems. I have a Arthurian trilogy that I'm bringing to you today. It is okay. First, let's start with the actual facts. Kevin Crossley-Holland is the author. This is meant for middle grade readers, although I would suggest it's one of those trilogies that would work best if the reader starts at about grade, like maybe grade 6 or so. It has nothing to do with what the reader's capable of. It's what the trilogy delivers, and so I'll talk about that in a second. So the first book is At the Crossing Places. And the second book is, did I get that wrong? No, the second book is The Seeing Stone. And the covers are gorgeous, or I guess those are jackets. And King of the Middle March. Okay, so they're all fairly big books. These are hardcover, but what we have is a fairly good font size, but also frequently we have chapters that's it. So a page and a half, 3 pages, sort of, I would say 6 at the most pages. And trying to think now, each book has got around 110, 111 chapters. And the other thing the book has that's really good for readers that helps this particular style of book is a very extensive list of who is in what parts of the story. It's actually a 4-page set of characters. It includes the animals, which I think is great, and it also has a little bit of help in that some of the characters are whom our main character meets on the crusade, and some are back at home. And then we have what is the Seeing Stone. Okay, so we have a young boy called Arthur. And Arthur is a foster child, although he doesn't know that initially. He has been fostered by a family who turns out to be connected to his birth father. And the birth father has, Arthur was 2 days old when he arrived on the scene with his foster family. And he doesn't find out anything until he's, I think, around 11, 12. And he has been talking to his foster dad about how much he really wants to be a page in a neighboring knight's castle. And I'm just thinking to myself, perhaps it's not apparent, I didn't say this, but it's taking place in the Middle Ages. We also have Arthur, who is in the Seeing Stone. So Arthur of the Middle Ages, he receives from Merlin, who happens to be part of the story, this obsidian shiny stone that he can look into, and he can see the past. And in the past is King Arthur and the Round Table. And so as medieval Arthur, can we give him a better name than that? Real Arthur? As real Arthur is growing and getting through his youth and his sort of coming of age moments and so on, becoming a page and becoming a knight, he is also traveling along with King Arthur as King Arthur is becoming, before he pulls the sword out. So we see early King Arthur, and then we see King Arthur at his coronation, and then we see all the tales of the round tables. So the whole, are they called fables? No, they're not fables. No. So the stories of King Arthur, the Arthurian legends, there we go, are just showing through the seeing stone. These legends have not been tampered with. They're very much of what you would read anywhere if you were to pick up a book that was um, Sir Gawain and the Green Knights, or Sir Lancelot, or Guinevere. He has not moved off of the path of any of those stories. So you get a sort of a double book, in a sense, that you see how real Arthur is looking back to King Arthur and recognizing that there's a lot of similarities. So they're both quite young, they're both fostered, they're both in a situation to become pages, and King Arthur was never really positioned to be a knight. He would only ever be a squire at best, I guess. And so that's all that real Arthur kind of expects too. It doesn't really expect to be a knight because he doesn't have. There's an older brother, so and so, how many knights can you have? This is an economic question. So real Arthur is working his way through all the angst of being sort of a preteen and having aspirations and being a bit frustrated in that they're not happening. He's a little bored with his education. He's pretty much an outdoor kinds of a kid, and he asks some difficult questions of his tutor, who happens to be a priest, and doesn't always go down too well. So the real Arthur is quite a thinker. He really is analyzing what he sees, very, very evidence-based kind of a person, but also he examines it through his heart. So he's trying to reconcile what he sees. So if there's an act of cruelty, he's actually, really concerned about why would people behave that way, and what can you do for atonement, and where's my responsibility in all of this. And because the rules of a knightship and chivalry are that you look after those who are in need, women, children, the infirm, the old, acts of cruelty and disdain and force and so on are just not part of the chivalric code. So real Arthur is struggling with what he sees, which is quite often not in the chivalric code, and how he asked, why is it happening, and what can he do to if he can't improve the world, what can he do to improve himself and his smaller world? So he's a very, very thoughtful kid. And it gets him into a lot of trouble because some of the adults around him are like, just shut up and do what you're told. And some of the authors are like, you're going to make a good knight. So in the first book, we've got real Arthur, coming of age, and he becomes a page, and he ends up going to the castle over where he is with Sir Stephen and becomes Sir Stephen's page. There's a call out. This is, what's his name? The Lionhearted King. Richard the Lionheart. King Richard has just died. King John is now in place. Nobody likes King John. He's about to tax the heck out of everybody. And at the same time, there's a call for Fourth Crusade. And so Sir Stephen decides that as part of his spiritual life, he is going to go on crusade, and they're going to go and rescue Jerusalem from the terrible, terrible people. I don't know if you've done any kind of reading about the Crusades, it was just like one catastrophe after another. It's quite an interesting piece of Western European history to read about any one of the Crusades, but the last one was a gong show. And so that's where we've got all these different countries coming together on Venice and having a whole bunch of ships being built, and everybody just trying to cheat everybody, and it's got almost nothing to do with your soul. And this is part of where real Arthur is struggling, because he just sees the avariceness and the backbiting and the cheating and so on, and you get a view. He's positioned so that he can see what the higher-ups are, because as a knight he's entitled to attend these meetings, but because he's a young kid, he can also just roam the town, and he sees all of the ways things are happening to the townspeople and to the merchants and to immigrants, and so he sees a lot. So Yeah, the second book, we've got him mostly in the castle area of Sir Stephen and learning about their life and the people around there, and a young lady that he becomes betrothed to. All along, he's trying to find his mom, and all along, he knows who his biological dad is, and no one wants to be that guy's son. So, like that guy's really not fun. And in the third book, we shift without any kind of seeing. We shift from Sir Stephen's abode to Venice. So we don't know how they get there, and we don't know how well positioned they are as Englishmen. There don't seem to be a lot of Englishmen who've taken up this Fourth Crusade. So they're a little bit isolated. And yeah, so we see how that whole crusade kind of fell to pieces on the shores of Venice. And what happens, I guess I don't want to tell you what happens. It's a very tidy ending. It makes sense. It's not out of proportion to the book in any kind of a way. This series is very definitely one step after the other, both in the Arthurian legends and in real Arthur's travels through preteen to teenage. And I think that's good. But at the same time, that's why I'm not sure it's a trilogy that you want to just sit down and chew on. Because it's okay for me as an adult, but if I'm a kid, so let's just say I'm starting at 11, 12, and we start off with the first book at the crossing places, you're going to really, the reader's going to really enjoy real Arthur and going to be intrigued by young King Arthur. I think that would be a very satisfying read. Get to the second one and we start to leave this satisfaction behind if you're still 10 or 11 years old. If you're a little bit older, you're going to travel along in age with the protagonist. When you get to the third book, if you're still that original reader, 10, 11 or so, the things that Arthur's worrying about and observing and so on are just really out of your, what shall I say? They're too adult. A lot of his thinking and concerns are about developing a moral code and principles and ethics and all these kinds of things, and how is he going to behave in the face of that, and when he has no choice but to behave against his code of conduct, what does that look like? I think it could make sense if Arthur wasn't a knight, if he was still a page and you were seeing him as an 11, 12-year-old. Well, I guess he could still be 12 or 11 in that kind of a circumstance. But he's now basically a man. Once he becomes knighted, he's essentially a man. In a 14-year-old's body, I'm not sure how old he is at this time. Because time has actually passed a little bit too, that I didn't get a ton of sense as to how old he was. Anyways, he's matured so much and he's seen so many grim things along the way that he is no longer the child that we see in the first book. And he's got some responsibilities in the final book that are definitely difficult. We don't see that too much. Again, like there's a journey involved and we don't see the journey, but we see the thinking, the internal monologue that real Arthur has. And again, like I just don't think that's great for a reading experience, like a fun reading experience. If you've got a real thoughtful kid on your hands, then yeah, for sure. But if you're looking for someone to continue the adventure, I don't think the third book really works. Now, having said that, there is a character in here that we meet primarily in the first book, and her name is Gatty, Gaty. And Gatty is someone who is of the peasant class and really, if the class system didn't exist, that person would really have risen above their station and been sort of self-educated, just that kind of get-goer. So Gatty has decided back in the first book that she really wants to go to Jerusalem. And so this completely standalone book, oh my goodness, Gatty's Tale. Um, this standalone book is a continuation of Real Adventure. Gaddy has decided that, no, she hasn't decided. She's ended up becoming a maid to a woman who's going on pilgrim. So, wow, that's cool because now Gaddy gets to go to Jerusalem just like she'd thought. However, she's not going as a knight, she's going as a maid. So you see their pilgrimage down to Jerusalem, and Gaddy has to take on a lot of really interesting challenges because I think at a certain time her mistress becomes ill, and anyway, she becomes responsible for a lot of things. So if it was me and I didn't know, if I was sort of supervising what the kid was reading, I would say read book 1 and 2, and then skip to Gaddy's Tale, and leave the third book until, like you go, oh yeah, I meant to finish that, and you'd be a couple of years on and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm glad I didn't. Oh, that's a real conflicting sentence, isn't it? It's a good book. It's just not for the original reader. So this is a trilogy that I would say you need to spread out over 3 years. Yeah, that's what I would do with this one. So this is a reread for me. I did kind of check to see whether Kevin Crossley-Holland has written anything, I think, since Gaddy's Tale, and I didn't find anything. And this one, the first one was written in, I think 2001. Where were we? 2001. So, yeah, I think he's an author who's finished writing. He's really done a beautiful job of the research, and the writing is really lovely, and we get to see the scenery. When they're in an apple tree or in the meadows close to the apple trees, really see the sunshines. Real Arthur is a poet. He loves to write songs and poems, and he keeps a journal, so he's a real writer. I think that's another charming aspect of this book, that in the Middle Ages, it's not everybody who gets to be literate, but he is taught well enough that he is definitely a writer of his own. Well, I guess that's all I have to say about that. It's kind of a short one today. I've got about 9 books that I'm supposed to be reading simultaneously. So it's beautiful outside. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get out and do some chores. And then I thought, no, the first really nice day of spring here, I'm going to make myself a nice cup of tea, put on a sweater, and go out and read one of my 9 books and just enjoy the weather. Don't have to work in it all the time, right? I know it rains a lot here, but it's every once in a while you just need to sit and watch it. So that's what my plan is for today. I hope it's really beautiful where you are, and I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true. Bye-bye for now.